Can group one please put their hands up for me? Group one, we'll start with you. And then I'm going to ask that all other meetings stop happening now so that we can pay attention to what group one is feeding back. You will remind the rest of the groups what your topic was, and you'll be allocated 2 minutes to give feedback on what the main outcomes of that is. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me at the back there as well? No? No? I might have to not drop the mic. So our group our topic was leak detection and how to finance leak detection projects. And I'm going to try and recap some of the main challenges, and hopefully my colleagues will help me over here as well. But we had a very good interactive round, lots of interest from different stakeholders.
Sorry, Brynn. Everyone, please listen to Brynn and group one and what they need feedback on. I know some of you are still finishing your thoughts, but if you're not clear what they're saying, you will not be able to learn from what they're saying, okay? Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you for that. Sorry to stop the conversations, but maybe we might have something interesting for you to hear as well. So our topic was around leak detection and financing leak detection or reduction, how we can bring the public and private sector together to finance solutions that provide impact. Some of the main things that we saw as challenges, the focus on technology alone is not enough. So leak detection can be tackled, or leak reduction can be tackled in many different ways, but if you just focus on a single technology, you're not likely to get the most impact or the highest impact, and you might not get any impact at all because of leak detection or leak reduction responds to different types of technologies in different ways. Access also to the required data to de-risk large capital projects is a challenge. We had some ladies in the group that are lobbying for municipalities to get funding, but they don't always have access to the required data to be able to make these types of decisions. I have to keep my phone from going. Right, then blended financing options and the supply chain management process is also relatively unknown. So there are options available. There's processes that can be followed, but a lot of the utilities are not aware of these types of things. So we need to have a little bit more transparency around that. Governance and policies also need to be unlocked, and then competing for long-term versus short-term gains is also a challenge. So in the end, we need to have more platforms for matching different stakeholders with different requirements to de-risk projects in leak detection and leakage reduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your group, you're happy with what Brynn has reflected, right? He hasn't missed out anything important and all that. Thumbs up everywhere. Thank you very much, Brynn. In a country where we have, 54% of our infrastructure leaking water, that becomes a very important conversation that we need to reflect on. Group number two, pressure management. Who's going to be doing the presentation? Your 2 minutes start.
Okay. No, thanks. We looked at pressure measurements, but in particular, our focus was on one layer above just pressure measurement, normal pressure measurement, which is advanced pressure measurement. Looking now at identifying those pressure zones and looking at the flow during night or peak hours. But the main thing was based on how can we fund this, or maybe what are the benefits. Obviously the high benefit is more on savings for municipalities, particularly looking at the capex projects, looking at the water losses, as the other group was looking at as well. But how do you fund that? To fund that was a challenge. I think we had a lot of to and fro in terms of discussions, but there were a lot of core funding ideas that we're looking at in terms of blended finance as well, looking at other, focusing on other measures of funding, like with the water credits. So it's one of the new things that are coming in. But also what we are focusing on is that how do you then get to implement this? And we had it's more like with the challenges in municipalities, it's better to look at maybe the panels, maybe 3 kind of panels, because the first thing to do a pressure measurement study, you need a feasibility study. So you need that. You need a panel that will be doing the implementation as well as the monitoring. So those are the things that we are looking at. Another issue that came about as well strongly when discussing the issue of advanced pressure measurement is that when doing it, looking at probably the performance-based contract, one of the key things that you need to look at is the KPIs or the key performance measures. Having to do the advanced pressure measurements while we are doing leak detections on the other side or leak repairs and others might dilute the actual outcome of the actual from your high advanced pressure measurement. So yeah, there were quite a lot of discussions, but I hear my time is up. But the idea was, yes, to look at the engagement. The engagement is through those panels, which is something that I think could be discussed with Treasury to implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Be assured, thank you. Be assured that Amir and the team will actually capture as much of what your discussions were and then share it more widely. So there will be an opportunity to reflect more than just the 2.5 minutes. Group number 3 was to answer the question of how we finance projects on smart metering. This is group number 3. And then the lady at the back there, beyond the green, I saw that your device made a noise, so you'll be singing us your national anthem before we go to tea today, yeah?
We are actually 2 groups. We split into 2.
Okay, cool.
Can provide feedback. So, yeah, I'll keep it brief. Hi, everyone. So we've discussed financing smart metering solutions, and we've started the discussion with with the question of because there's different options which we have in South Africa, which is either a postpaid billing system or a prepaid metering solution or a smart wallet solution. And I'm not going in too much detail. We had some interesting discussions and debates. We have a lot of representatives from different countries where obviously there's different scenarios, different environments. The supply may be different. So we've actually decided that there's not necessarily a preferred option because it depends on a lot of inputs and different use cases. So in essence, we decided that there are a few important factors to consider when looking at financing a smart metering solution, which can be any of those solutions. But then the focus would be on obviously using quality meters that are certified, that measures accurately, and it's going to last you for the lifetime of the lifetime that's certified for that meter, ensuring that you are getting that revenue back from your usage with the meters that are financed through the lifetime of that finance option, and also obviously providing security for those meters that's on a finance, installed on a finance option to ensure that there's no damage throughout the life cycle of those meters or possible theft. And then lastly, it's also important to transfer that knowledge of deploying a smart metering solution to your end users for them to leverage the advantages that you're getting from that smart meter in order to, say, detect leaks, reduce your non-revenue water, and maybe even change end user behavior for how you use your water. If you have visibility on your hourly usage, that could maybe motivate people to use water more sparingly.
Thank you so much. And this particular group was so large that there was a second group on it.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. So I think our table had a really good mix of public, private sectors,
different worlds of experience, meter manufacturers, municipal employees, etc. And the first thing we looked at was our problem. What are we trying to solve here? Is it revenue improvement, non-revenue water, pressure management, leak detection, customer engagement, and we want to be proactive and maintain regulatory compliance. We then said we must do a cost-benefit analysis. Is it feasible? Define our solutions, have a few options, look at the benefits related, and have your target group. Thereafter, we looked at funding. Funding from improved baseline figures, offering customer incentives, perhaps even utilizing customer funding models, self-funding by the municipality, grants, public-private partnerships, and even metering as a service. Obviously, it's the technology, and that was the biggest part. What do we want? Do you want to stick with mechanical, ultrasonic, mag flows? You want pressure sensors on your network, remote shutoffs, leak detection? How do you want to build customers for this? Prepaid, postpaid, and smart wallets as well. Communication protocols, NB-IoT, Sigfox, LoRaWAN. Very important is to have open protocols, we thought as well. You, as a municipality, you don't really want to be locked in. So you want to have that flexibility. Then there's the analytics, data collection, dashboards, the frequency of these alerts, AI and machine learning, something new coming into this field, very exciting as well. Platforms for the customers, customer engagement, giving power back to the customers and giving them ability to see their consumption, see their usage in a water-scarce society. Obviously, it's the technology, the battery and performance of the device, procurement strategies. Finally, the deployment phase, where you're really looking at planning, installing, security around it. And at the end of it all, we want to take a step back and realize the benefits, look at the new model that was perhaps created and the lessons learned there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So both those groups speaking to how we finance projects on smart metering. Group number 4, you did energy efficiency. Where is group number 4? That side.
Thank you. So we had quite robust and lengthy discussions in our roundtable. But before delving into sort of the outputs from our dialogue, important to add that when we began our roundtable, we only had literally one taker from the entire audience. This also indicates the extent to which energy efficiency is an afterthought at utilities and at water infrastructure owners. So quite concerning, especially given the fact that we have, as a country, committed to climate goals. So we were tasked with looking at the energy-water nexus and decided to extend that to also look at efficiency. And efficiency, we linked back to digitalization. So we had quite a few engineers in our team, and they very focused and bringing back conversations continuously back to the tech elements of that nexus. So very few and far between there are projects in energy efficiency. So we spent a lot of time, discussing barriers and risks, but also opportunities, particularly because we have pretty much of a blank canvas. So if we're to talk about opportunities for financing in the energy and in the nexus, the three-way nexus, we'd probably begin by talking about pump stations. So interestingly enough, energy accounts for about 40% of OPEX costs at most utilities, and the bulk of that used in pump pump stations. So we listed here pump optimization projects, a focus on non-revenue water projects as well, in particular leak detections. We talked about digitalization as wider sense. How do we link that with monitoring? How do we link that up with metering and billing? We had a discussion on wastewater opportunities as well, and also learning, interesting enough, that cogeneration is a more suitable use for municipal sludge as opposed to generating power to pull back into the grid. So if we were to look at, so it is a financing panel or discussion, and we couldn't not talk about the risks and the barriers. And we spent a lot of time talking about the technical risks. So in essence, if we get the technical risks sorted, we deal with institutional and governance issues, and then we also similarly deal with enabling regulation that will allow for energy efficiency to become central to discussions around strategy and planning. We believe that there could be strides. So our solutions really very similar to ones that were shared before, performance-based contracting. We'd also like utilities to look at, as they approach financiers, to bring portfolios instead of projects. We talked about private sector participation and partnerships, and then talking broadly that there is financing for projects. The challenge is always the preparation. The challenge is also in particular around creating a narrative around efficiency, not just as an operating consideration, but across the value chain for infrastructure. Colleagues, I hope I represented us well in that short time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Group number 5 was speaking to how you finance projects on water quality monitoring.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. Going to be talking about the water quality question, and we quite organically moved through 3 different levels within our conversation. We started with context, then moved on to use cases, and then finally funding streams or providers. From a context point of view, we had 2 quite different perspectives from an operational and legislative perspective, where we had representation from the UK in our group, and then also strong representation from South Africa. And we talked about incentives versus disincentives related to legislation around this question, and then moved into, as I said, use cases, where we realized that defining the use case, the problem space, and the potential solution space would depend on this nice framework, potentially, that one of our group members brought up. Those at the back won't be able to see this. We have hyper-awareness up here, so that's monitoring. Do you know what the problem is? Can you quantify the problem? Moving on to making an informed decision. So once you've got that information, hopefully then you can decide what to do and then actually do it. So you've got action down here. And around water quality, it's going to be an ongoing challenge, and so you need to make sure that you're moving through this cycle from an operational perspective. Around that, kind of bringing the context into it, you've got policy, compliance, bylaws, and tariffs, and moving from strategic into operational decision-making spaces. And those are all going to define the type of water that you're talking about. So if you're ultimately going to get to developing a business case in relation to a water quality project, you need to make sure that you understand the type of water that you're talking about. Is it a potable water quality issue, or discharge of effluent into the environment? And then the nuance related to each of those. And you need to match your monitoring to the requirements. That is, of course, going to determine how much you need to spend to get that hyper-awareness. And then with regard to where you're going to get the money from, once you've worked out what your problem is, we looked at potable, industrial, and catchment as our verticals in a matrix here. And then the user, the utility, industry, or a third-party provider as our rows, and we put together a little matrix there. Some of the things that I'll highlight in the interest of time is discharge charge rate and the difference between a fee versus a penalty and the punitive implications of that. And then from a third-party provider perspective, we have green incentives. So how do you look at, for example, a loan provider, making it more attractive for people to work with them and get funding from them. And finally, to wrap it all up, understanding the stakeholder map, Who's asking for that funding is going to determine what it looks like, but ultimately we're going to come up with a rock-solid business case using the 5-case model of strategic, economic, financial management, and commercial elements to make sure that we cover all of the bases and make it a slam dunk for a potential funder.
Thank you very much. We absolutely like the idea of slam dunks in this workshop. The next one is water as a service.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so we discussed the topic of water as a service. Can everyone hear me fine? And I confess I entered the discussion thinking this is going to be a slam dunk, that everybody thinks this is the panacea, the silver bullet to sorting out the water problems in the country. And I was very surprised. There's a lot of reservation and conservatism around water as a service, and very valid concerns and points. And maybe I'll talk about a few of those, then we'll talk about some of the opportunity that there is. So firstly, what is it? We discussed what is water as a service, because it's a topic bandied around a lot, but not everybody kind of fully understands that. But I think we all kind of got down to the understanding that it is basically, I open my tap, I expect water to come out. I don't want to know how it got there. I don't want the complexity of that. It's a service you're providing me. I want to pay for every kiloliter of water that arrives. That's the simple part. The complexity is significantly more. And the analogy between electricity and water is growing further and further apart. We're seeing, that, it's also completely different whether you're dealing with residential cases or commercial or industrial mining, and even more so if you're dealing with the public sector, where there's all sorts of constitutional requirements to deliver a service or access at least. So complexity, that's one of the biggest things that make water as a service a challenge. And then also one of the things that was really raised, particularly in terms of public sector, is the reliance, the creation of reliance, that there's this real fear around not kind of being held ransom to a reliance situation where the water service provider can really dictate the terms. That said, I think there was definitely some positivity about it, and there's certainly an understanding that capital or entrepreneurial spirit can lead to ingenuity, it can lead to efficiencies, and it certainly has been a successful model that's been used around the world and here in two cases. So, to wrap it up quickly, if you are going to go down this route, the really key things to look at, whether it's public sector or private, is partnerships. It isn't just a turn the tap on. There's a partnership, there's a network that you're connected to, and there's got to be very supportive frameworks. Contracts and responsibility, so strong contracts that clearly define the different responsibilities along that network. And then, of course, and I suppose it's applicable to this forum, data, information, monitoring, the connection of these smart networks that allow us to support those two first points, contracts and responsibilities, and of course the partnership.
Thank you very much. Group 7 spoke to financing customer engagement. You are Group 7 here, right?
Good afternoon, everybody. We've had quite a few themes and narratives throughout the morning and the afternoon in addressing customer engagement, and there was a billing component as well. Our group came up with the following items that were elaborated and discussed. At the core of customer engagement is the acknowledgement and the reality that customers do not trust municipalities. And how do we re-establish and rebuild that trust? One of the previous speakers spoke about giving consumers visibility to resource monitoring and resource consumption. It was a common theme in our group as well. The more visibility we give our consumers, the greater that rebuild of trust will be. There was another interesting suggestion that was put forward, not just a suggestion, but actual anecdotal reference. Consumer forum groups. And this was an interesting one where they took the message to where consumers congregated in one of the African countries with great success, more than 90% turnout and high levels of engagement. The other idea that was bandied and shared was creating a narrative that amplifies the awareness regarding water conservation. So in re-establishing that trust, we also need to amplify the narrative around water conservation. Third-party involvement in re-establishing customer engagement was also seen as a tool to deflect from the municipality and getting closer to the consumer. The second part of customer engagement, the question that we had to answer was funding. Conventional and traditional funding models, as we heard this morning, is not always going to work. We need to rethink and reshape how we're going to approach funding when municipalities need funding for smart metering, scaling smart metering deployments. And in order for that to happen, policy change needs to take effect. And for policy change to take effect and gain traction, more peer-to-peer groups need to be established. And I think Salga put their hand up to establish those peer-to-peer groups. And how do we create funding and value within a utility? We need to baseline and track value and show value to senior stakeholders so that value can be seen in municipalities. We speak about the 80-20 principle, where 80% of your revenue or losses is derived from 20% of your installed base. So look at the low-lying fruit. The last question we had to answer is, how do we get all departments, financial, civil, engineering, technical, all involved in the smart metering journey? Start with the consumer. The consumer is the common touch point. Start with the consumer in your smart metering journey, and you will ensure all departments are engaged. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second to last group was discussing how do we finance projects on water reuse. Where's group number 8?
Yeah. Thank you. So our roundtable was quite blessed because we had very strong engineering skills from City of Cape Town, Rand Water Kucha, and of course a lot of diversity because we had some nuggets from Australia and Singapore. The first thing we tried to unpack was really what are the technical challenges with water reuse, and of course our amazing caliber of engineers said any challenge they've encountered was too small for them. Water reuse is very viable, and basically there's nothing stopping us from really accelerating it. And then we decided to take a deep dive into the actions that would accelerate the adoptions of water reuse. The first one was policy reforms, right? So we said that, for metros, the metro trading services is one of the policy reforms that we want to look at, where we want, for example, profits from water sales to be ring-fenced and used only on water activities. And then we also thought triple Ps, as we learn and do more, we want continuous reviewing of triple P legislation and approvals. And then more actions, we looked at stakeholders that we can partner with. We decided that children are very influential, so basically Department of Education is a good stakeholder, to just instill it in the curriculum, water reuse, water conservation. And then we also unpacked what worked in Australia, that for water reuse, instead of really targeting households, we need to target large users like, of course, mines and agriculture, and also look at ways to incentivize them through subsidies. We also said banks are very instrumental as a stakeholder that the water industry can partner with, because, when approving funding for new developments, they can be key considerations to grey water. And then more actions on how we can position water reuse to attract funding. We took a deep dive into Rand Water's SPV model. That they're working on with, I think, Mfuleni. It's quite excellent because it also unlocks some grant funding. And then, of course, triple Ps is also one of the ways we think we can mobilize funding for water reuse. Thanks, I hope I didn't miss anything.
Thank you very much. And then our final group, reflecting on industrial projects and how we can finance that.
Hi guys, can you all hear me? I'm not the best public speaker, and I'm the last one in our group, so you're left with me. So we spoke about translating water risk into bankable industrial projects, and we actually spent more time speaking about data more than anything else, which is quite interesting. So I'm going to give you a couple of sort of conclusions that we came to and some questions that we sort of left ourselves. So we found that probably our biggest challenge to this, answering this question is the lack of data that can be used to inform or quantify sort of the true cost of water. And like we've asked ourselves, like, do we really understand the risk of not having access to water enough to really make informed decisions? And how do we get sort of private sector to focus on long-term solutions rather than sometimes just plugging the gap, if you will? So we thought there might not be enough sort of incentives for the private sector clients to actually fund projects. So we need to use the data to drive standards across various geographical areas and potentially create a sort of a new water usage scheme similar to carbon capturing. This will help us sort of change the conversation from focusing purely on financial benefits, but also looking at sort of water-related projects and how they also sort of consider the wider impact of those projects themselves. And that's it. Unless you guys want to add anything. No? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I know how difficult it is to have taken already a pressured hour-long conversation where you exchange your ideas and trying to distill it into a 2-minute, 30-second presentation. Amir is going to tell us what's going to happen to these presentations before we break for tea.
First, let's just give everyone a round of applause. Great job, everyone. Lots of great insights. So we want to capture all the notes from this and also share it with people that couldn't attend the event. So if I can ask each roundtable to collect the notes, and I sent you the link to submit it afterwards, and then we'll share it with everyone as well. So thanks again. And
all right, and then it's tea break. I'll see you back in here in your regular seat at 3:30 for our final keynote for the day.